I came close to ending my friendship with Harry. He picked Meghan, a dreadful wife. She's forever acting improperly. So I had to remove him from the Santa Barbara Polo Club.
Long before the cracks showed, Prince Harry's life looked like a non-stop reel of privilege, green polo fields, and friendships that felt rock solid. His world ran on competition, adrenaline, and quiet loyalty built behind the scenes, bonds that seemed untouchable and locked in for life. Standing tall in that circle was Ignacio Nacho Figueras, the Argentine polo icon who became more than just a teammate. He was family, a brother in arms who rode beside Harry through wins, losses, and life off the field. Their bond symbolized everything Harry loved: freedom, loyalty, and an escape from stiff royal rules that never quite fit him. Polo was his refuge, his reset button, a space where titles didn't matter and respect was earned the hard way. But then came a statement that tore through that illusion like a blade. Nacho Figueras, in what sources describe as a rare moment of blunt honesty, reportedly admitted he had come dangerously close to cutting Harry off entirely. The reason stunned those who heard it: Harry's choice of wife, Meghan Markle. According to claims linked to Nacho, her presence brought disruption, with actions viewed as improper and her influence triggering exclusion rather than unity. The shock didn't stop there. He allegedly claimed Harry was removed from the elite Santa Barbara Polo Club, a private haven where royals and athletes mixed without judgment or drama. If true, that move sent a loud signal that even sacred spaces had limits. This revelation didn't surface alone. It echoed a rising wave of whispers from Harry's once tight inner circle, all painting the same picture: isolation, piece by piece. His social world reportedly unraveled after marriage. Sources say the shock on Harry's face was real and visible. How did it reach this point? A man who once commanded rooms now found doors quietly closing. Connections faded, invites dried up, and blame, fair or not, kept circling back to the woman he chose to stand beside. The story unfolding wasn't a fairy tale anymore. It was a mix of control, excess, and silent distancing. What started as a whirlwind romance reportedly evolved into something heavier, forcing Harry to confront the real cost of his decisions. Multiple insiders claim they watched the shift firsthand. They describe patterns where Meghan's interactions raised eyebrows. Her demeanour toward men was labelled by some as overly familiar, while her hold on Harry, both literal and symbolic, became harder to ignore. Friends who once laughed together after polo matches now spoke in low voices. They described awkward moments, blurred boundaries, and tension thick enough to change the mood of entire gatherings. Nacho's words, sources insist, weren't a sudden blow-up. They were the result of years of observation. He watched Harry go from carefree and independent to a man who seemed constantly tethered. That independence slowly eroded. The alleged polo club expulsion, if accurate, wasn't just social drama. It was public humiliation. A warning that even elite spaces weren't immune to fallout. Harry's reaction, according to those nearby, was disbelief. He had already given up family closeness, royal duties, and life in Britain. Now even his social lifeline felt unstable. The question lingered loudly: was this isolation self-chosen or quietly engineered? As more details surfaced, it became clear this wasn't a small disagreement. It was a fracture exposing deeper issues that threatened the foundation of Harry's new world entirely. Harry and Nacho's friendship stretched back to sun-soaked polo grounds of the early 2000s. They met during charity matches where Harry's raw enthusiasm matched Nacho's professional skill. Over time, competition turned into trust. Nacho, often called the David Beckham of polo, brought both glamour and grounded advice into Harry's life. They travelled together, competed side by side, and shared major milestones. Nacho stood close during Harry's bachelor days, watching him search for stability while tabloid chaos swirled. When Meghan entered the picture, Nacho reportedly welcomed her. He spoke publicly about Harry's happiness, once calling Meghan an amazing teammate in interviews. Public appearances painted them as a modern power duo. Events like the Centre Ballet Polo Cup reinforced that image, with Nacho acting as a bridge between Harry's old world and his new one. But beneath the polished surface, sources close to the polo circuit noticed subtle cracks forming after the wedding. Harry, once the heartbeat of post-match hangouts, grew more reserved. Decisions that once came naturally now seemed filtered. The loyal friend tried to keep things normal, holding space and defending them when headlines got rough. Nacho hosted the couple, included them socially, and publicly praised their bond. He even said they love each other very much, expressing happiness for their family life. But loyalty, insiders say, has limits. As Meghan's influence expanded, so did the discomfort. Insiders recall moments where her interactions with male acquaintances crossed into territory that felt excessive. Her charm, intense and focused, left some uneasy. Harry, stuck in the middle, appeared unaware or unwilling to step in. Nacho's patience reportedly thinned. The Santa Barbara Polo Club, more than just a sport venue, became ground zero. It wasn't about polo alone, it was about belonging and standards. If Nacho truly played a role in Harry's removal, insiders say it was a statement. Impropriety had no place there. Harry's shock came from feeling betrayed by someone he considered family. A bond, once unbreakable, now hung by a thread, forcing Harry to confront how far he had drifted. Meghan entered Harry's life with undeniable force. Her confidence and charisma pulled him in fast. Their romance moved quickly, blending Hollywood shine with royal tradition. Friends like Nacho initially felt hopeful. Meghan attended polo events, mingled easily, and brought fresh energy. Early days were filled with optimism, but as the relationship locked in, dynamics shifted. Whispers grew louder about control, steering conversations, decisions, even Harry's schedule. Sources described her holding him tightly in public, affectionate to some, territorial to others. That control allegedly spilled into social interactions. Accounts surfaced of Meghan engaging intensely with men in Harry's orbit. Her flirtatious style, again nothing illegal, sparked discomfort. One insider described gatherings where she dominated conversations in ways that felt deliberate. Harry's longtime friends noticed him deferring more, aligning his opinions with hers. Nacho, watching quietly, grew concerned. Polo spaces that once felt natural now felt strained. The marriage meant to free Harry instead narrowed his world. Family rifts came first, loud and public. Then friendships followed quietly. Pre-marriage accounts paint Harry as surrounded by loyal friends, but post-wedding, many disappeared. One report claimed Harry cut off pals during Meghan's pregnancy, prioritizing his new life. Resentment built on both sides. Nacho's statement reflected that shift. Meghan's actions, he implied, had consequences. Harry's shock came from not anticipating the cost. What started as love now felt, to some, like confinement. Observers continued noting patterns in Meghan's interactions, described as overly engaging, intense, and attention-driven at social events. Some insiders used metaphors, saying she gripped Harry, symbolizing control beyond affection. Body language experts pointed to moments where she appeared to direct his movements or interrupt exchanges. These moments weren't isolated. In private circles, stories multiplied. Polo gatherings, once relaxed, turned tense. Nacho witnessed moments where harmony cracked. One account described Meghan engaging excessively with players, her proximity raising eyebrows. Harry withdrew further, losing the banter that once defined him. Reports of demanding behaviour in professional settings surfaced, with staff feeling pressured. Friends attempted interventions, but Harry stayed loyal. The Polo Club decision became the breaking point. If true, the removal wasn't petty. It followed repeated issues threatening the club's reputation. Harry felt betrayed. Others saw it as inevitable. As the marriage progressed, Harry's isolation became undeniable. Old friends vanished. Those who questioned Meghan, including longtime pals, were frozen out. Skepticism met severance. Nacho, once supportive, reached his limit. His comments highlighted Meghan's role in alienating allies. Harry's social network, built over decades, crumbled in America. Far from Britain, the void grew louder. Sources described him as lonely, with days shaped tightly around Meghan's agenda. By 2025, insiders claimed the couple had very few friends left. Staff turnover amplified the sense of abandonment. Polo, once his escape, became a battlefield. The Santa Barbara Club snub symbolized everything lost, a public rejection from a world he loved. Reports emerged of Harry feeling homesick for the UK, where many close friends remained distant. In Montecito, the isolation felt sharper, leaving Harry described as deeply lonely, slowly transforming into a figure reminiscent of historical royals who withdrew from society, carrying the weight of choices that changed everything. The friends who once filled Prince Harry's bachelor days across England were no longer part of his everyday reality. Distance mattered, yes, but insiders insist tension did far more damage than geography ever could. Long-standing bonds weakened under strain, misalignment, and growing unease that never quite found resolution. Harry's shock landed in layers. He had imagined a life of freedom, a break from rigid expectations, a chance to finally breathe. Instead, what he found waiting on the other side was a quiet isolation that crept in slowly, but settled deeply. Sources close to the situation claim this didn't happen by accident, but through repeated patterns that narrowed his circle and tightened influence around him. Friends reached out at first, determined not to let decades of loyalty fade quietly, but barriers kept rising. One report highlighted fallouts with figures like the Beckhams, with insiders again pointing toward Meghan's growing impact on Harry's social decisions. The prince, who once thrived in groups, now moved through a much smaller, controlled world. Nacho's words only sharpened the narrative, a single choice leading to exclusion rather than unity. Those watching from the sidelines insist this isolation wasn't random or misunderstood. It was deliberate. It was systematic. And it left Harry staring down the consequences of a path he may not have fully understood at the time. By late 2025, insiders say Harry confided to the few people still around him that pleasing Meghan while repairing damaged relationships felt impossible. The pressure weighed heavily. At the same time, reports of staff departures climbing into double digits painted a parallel picture of instability inside the household. Observers noted how the revolving door of employees mirrored Harry's shrinking social circle. Experts increasingly pointed to Meghan's dominant personality as a recurring factor in these ongoing losses. What began as small adjustments had transformed into deep estrangement, forcing Harry to confront not only lost friendships, but a complete reshaping of who he was outside the royal system. The Santa Barbara Polo Club stood at the centre of this unraveling. For Harry, it wasn't just a club, it was identity, belonging and escape. Founded in the early 20th century, the venue blended tradition, prestige and camaraderie, offering Harry a rare place where royal titles dissolved under shared passion. After relocating to California, the club became a lifeline, a place where competition replaced scrutiny and friendships formed without headlines. Nacho Figueras, widely seen as Polo's charismatic ambassador, carried serious influence there. His role extended far beyond the field, touching networking, social access, and event leadership behind the scenes. So when reports surfaced that Nacho had allegedly been instrumental in Harry's removal from the club, the shock rippled through elite circles instantly. The move, closely linked to perceptions of Meghan's conduct, represented a decisive rupture. Insiders recalled specific club events where her interactions allegedly pushed beyond the unspoken rules of etiquette. Animated conversations, intense engagement, and proximity that disrupted the refined atmosphere left members uneasy. Harry, described as firmly under her influence, appeared hesitant or unwilling to intervene. Over time, that hesitation carried consequences that couldn't be ignored. Eventually, Nacho's tolerance reached its limit. What began as loyalty and patience gave way to a firm stance rooted in principle. Protecting the club's reputation reportedly took precedence over personal history. The fallout expanded quickly. Whispers spread through the broader Polo world, with other exclusive venues quietly reassessing their association with Harry. Invitations slowed, then stopped altogether. Harry's initial disbelief reportedly turned into internal conflict. Confidants spoke of emotional private discussions where he sought reconciliation with Nacho only to meet unwavering resolve. This wasn't a temporary disagreement or bruised ego, it exposed fragility within Harry's marriage itself. Public appearances maintained a united image, but insiders say the cracks beneath the surface widened. Recent tensions compounded the strain. Nacho's public criticism of Harry's remarks about the royal family further damaged what little trust remained between them. Reports also pointed to friction in shared creative projects. Allegations emerged that Harry's presence in a Polo documentary was scaled back due to concerns it felt awkward, with Meghan's involvement cited as influential. Her leadership style across ventures, including streaming content, was described by analysts as assertive and directive, edging into domineering territory. These patterns unsettled former allies who once supported the couple openly. Gradually, Harry's remaining network thinned even more. People quietly stepped away, unwilling to risk being drawn into conflict or controversy. The silence that followed transformed Harry's once vibrant life into something subdued and fragmented. Messages unanswered, invitations unreturned, and long-standing traditions quietly abandoned. Nacho's decisive move became the tipping point. It forced Harry to confront the cumulative toll of years of choices in stark, unavoidable terms. The damage extended beyond private heartbreak. It threatened Harry's public image and his enduring ties to royal heritage. Under constant scrutiny, personal fractures risked becoming permanent reputational scars. Losing Nacho didn't just raise questions about loyalty, it fueled narratives of manipulation and undue influence within Harry's inner circle. Insiders have long alleged Meghan's role played a major part in Harry's isolation. Old friends were left confused, cut off without explanation, watching lifelong bonds disappear overnight. That pattern didn't stop with friendships. Family relationships suffered too. Absences at milestone moments, including close friends' weddings, became painful symbols of widening separation. The marriage once praised as modern and boundary-breaking now buckled under relentless pressure. Predictions of separation grew louder, fueled by claims that strategic isolation boxed Harry into a tightly controlled world centered around Meghan's vision. By 2025, expert commentary and speculative analysis increasingly pointed to 2026 as a potential breaking point. Talk of carefully managed separation scenarios surfaced, suggesting image preservation amid rising strain. The ripple effects were impossible to ignore. Polo communities buzzed with speculation. Royal watchers dissected every movement. Media outlets analysed each fallout with forensic intensity. Nacho's earlier praise of the couple in glowing interviews now stood in stark contrast to his reported stance, underscoring how quickly alliances can fracture. Occasional glimpses of reconciliation, like the 2025 Aspen ski trip, hinted that some bonds remained. Yet these moments were overshadowed by persistent narratives of isolation. A life rebuilt in California now appeared unstable, exposed to the heavy reality of loneliness and distance from familiar anchors. Control that once blended into affection now stood out sharply, prompting friends to question the marriage's sustainability. As Harry's shock softened into weary acceptance, the future of the union appeared increasingly uncertain. Isolation had evolved beyond a side effect, becoming a warning sign of deeper collapse, even divorce. In the quiet aftermath, an unsettling silence settled over Harry's former social world. No loud denials, no urgent reconciliations. Nacho Figueras' pointed words continued to echo through elite circles, a reminder of bonds that may never fully recover. Harry's shock, once sharp and disorienting, now seems to be shifting into something heavier, either hardened resolve or deep regret. The isolation surrounding him, built through repeated patterns of control and behavioral excess, has left him adrift, far from the anchors of his former life. A handful of friends still hover at the edges, cautious and distant. Polo fields, once filled with laughter, now feel conspicuously emptier without him. This unfolding narrative, stitched together from uncomfortable behavior, painful fallouts, and unspoken tension, demands reflection from everyone involved. Will Harry reclaim what was lost, or will the divide widen further, cementing his exile? As unanswered questions linger, the story pauses in uneasy suspense. The truth inches closer, threatening to shatter the fragile surface. In this royal saga where every silence speaks volumes, quiet no longer signals peace. Instead, it signals a reckoning. The true cost of Harry's life-altering choice, once abstract and buried in optimism, has solidified into something unmistakably real, forcing him to confront a world profoundly reshaped, not just by circumstance, but by the pervasive influence of the woman steadfastly at his side, whose actions have redefined his existence in ways he could scarcely have imagined. If this story made you think, hit like, subscribe for more, share this with others, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Because this saga is still unfolding, and your voice matters.